Is that winning mentality?
It's
I
it's
wouldn't say so.
I can see where you're coming from, Jamie. And
As an impact sub and game management, I don't think there's anyone in our attack that's better than Grealish.
A lot of people rate him. Don't get me wrong. You know, I've had some comparisons to Busquets. Apparently,
why are we the bookies' favourites?
not taking Braithwaite was the real disappointment and shock for me.
We are literally days away from Euro 2024 kicking off, and today we are asking the big question: can England really win the Euros? We've just lost to Iceland, but apparently we're still tournament favourites in the bookies' eyes. Today we're going through the squad, some of the big decisions that are made, and ultimately deciding, can this side actually win the Euros? Jamie, let's come to you first. Obviously, there was a lot of breaking news last week and some big headlines, particularly with some of the players missing out that either got cut or simply weren't in the squad at all. For you, who were the two or three that really stood out as shocking, let's say?
Well, I think one that's sort of obvious, he wasn't even in the squad, and that was Rashford, because he has been in Southgate's squad throughout his other tournaments and was in the qualifiers. So for him to miss out, I thought was quite surprising, considering he's, one of the quickest, well, he's probably our quickest attacker in the squad. So it's odd to see him. The other one was probably Maguire, but that was down to injury. So you can't blame Southgate. His hands were tied, and Maguire was probably starting. And then, look, you'll call me City biased, but I think the biggest one was Grealish. I don't understand how you can leave him out of the squad. I think if you're looking, let's say you like your Palmers, your Sakas, your Fodens, your Gordons, even in that sort of attacking role. But as an impact sub and game management, I don't think there's anyone in our attack that's better than Grealish. Grealish can, if you're 1-0 down, say against France or Germany, he comes on, he can slow the game down, he can get us free kicks in different positions, he'll carry the ball 20, 30 yards, which I can see other players doing, but not as well as Grealish. But I do think it comes down to, I don't think Southgate likes Grealish. There was always the sort of, past tournaments where fans were singing, get Grealish on, basically. And I don't think he likes him. And I think he's gone, you know what, this is probably my last tournament. I'm not going to have that kind of stick of people wanting me to bring him on every game. I'm not going to have him in the squad at all. So I'd say they're the big omissions from it.
Yeah, I think you could argue it's a bit of unwanted attention maybe as well. Like, let's be fair, despite the fans going and bring him on and all the media hype, he wasn't great for England. Obviously, it's hard if you're coming on as a sub to have a real impact anyway, but he just doesn't need it. And look, City, obviously, again, we know won the league, but Grealish, again, I don't think has been a key player. You might disagree, but you've got to, I know you say the stats, you've got to look at elsewhere with the stats, but for City, he's not been good enough, especially in terms of his stats contribution, which I know the game's not just about stats, but you look at everyone else.
But sort of this season, yes, he's not been good enough. He's not been one of our key players and hasn't actually really been in the starting 11. So I understand that with this. But I do think you have to look elsewhere for stats when you're looking at Grealish, because in the treble winning season, he was always in the starting 11, but still didn't have that high goals and assists. It doesn't mean you're a bad player. You can contribute in other ways. So I disagree on that, but I also agree on he wasn't in the starting 11 this season, so maybe he hasn't been good enough, like Rashford this season. So it could be coming down to that, where he's actually picking players off form rather than their actual ability.
Yeah, I think that's been the criticism as well in the past. Is obviously it's hard as an England manager. You're in an impossible situation, so you're gonna get some hypocrisy when you make comments on players by default. But I do think more so than ever, he has actually stuck to his word and picked a few players a little bit more off form this time round. Your Eze, your Bowens, those kind of players. Palmer again making his sort of first proper appearance. So I think that's good to see, and that is refreshing. Let's talk some of the other omissions to start with. Reece, outside of Grealish being a shock omission, who else caught your eyes? Maybe a bit of a question mark on Southgate's judgment.
It's an interesting one, really, because I think I understand where he's coming from with all his choices. I know you just drew upon it there about going for players in form. You know, we complained about him picking his favourites, you know, when they weren't delivering at club level. As soon as he goes for players delivering at club level, we're moaning at him for not picking established stars. Yes, Grealish was a big shock. We can't deny. I thought Maddison was going to be dropped for Grealish to be moved in, but the stats for Grealish have not been good. As good as he is, I think tactically, he hasn't been good, and we could argue that Eze 100% deserves it more because Eze has been better and he's more versatile. I'm a bit surprised, actually. I think I wasn't too shocked Rashford was dropped. I think that was justified. I know we can go into that if we want to. I was actually shocked that he didn't take Jared Braithwaite. I think he's had a better season than Lewis Dunk, personally. There's no disrespect to Lewis Dunk. I think Braithwaite was much more deserving, you know, in that defensive backline they had with Pickford, and Pickford would have someone there do you know what I mean, can connect with a little bit better as well. I was shocked he didn't take him. I thought he would have been perfect to stick at the back. And I'm actually quite disappointed that he hasn't taken him and gone for Lewis Dunk instead. No, like I said, no disrespect to Lewis Dunk. I do like him, but I think Braithwaite is a better player. But is Braithwaite ready for that occasion? But if we argue that, we can say, well, why are you taking Eze and Wharton in that case, right? Which again, Wharton is a surprise inclusion ourselves, which you can discuss more. But not taking Braithwaite was the real disappointment and shock for me.
Yeah, completely agree. And obviously a good chance to plug our TikTok. Make sure you're following. I did do a TikTok on saying exactly this. I personally do think the most surprising for me, based on form and everything, all factors, was Branthwaite. He not only has he had a good season. I know Everton would, you can argue, not struggling, but had a difficult run of games, let's say, and a difficult run of form. But despite that, he has got praise from so many pundits, being touted as the next big England centre back. So I don't know what's gone on there. I'll be honest. I'm not sure what's gone on. And talking of Dunk,
just with Braithwaite though, he had the most clean sheets out of all English centre backs. So I don't understand it. Like
he's not played a big part in that either, Jamie.
Yeah.
He's been instrumental with Tarkowski at the back. Let's be honest. They're sorry to interrupt, but it's spot on. What you saying?
Yeah, and you've also I know it's not FIFA Ultimate Team, but again he's played with Pickford. You got a little bit of chemistry there. So honestly I can't wrap my head around that one. I think in terms of looking at Dunk, I don't think he's going to start Dunk. I actually think he's going to go Gurhey, which again I actually don't mind. I think Gurhey's really good. I said it before when we sold him. We probably shouldn't have sold him, but I think that's why. I don't necessarily think Dunk's relevant. Weirdly, I think Dunk's in there for a bit more experience, and that's maybe why the only sort of rational explanation as to why Branthwaite's out. But I think he might end up going Gurhey. We'll obviously do, again, make sure you're subscribed and notifications are on. We will be doing a podcast later in the week, picking our perfect starting 11. So we'll discuss that and who we think starting. But yeah, I think Gurhey is a good inclusion. And maybe you could argue he's a surprise. He wouldn't have been nailed on at least, let's say.
To be fair to Lewis Dunk, though, I do think we say, the guy did play, 43 games in all competitions, and he fit into what De Zerbi's style of players, which is a very modern approach to the game, and he did do a good job. So maybe that's his thinking tactically. I assume he's a very good leader, probably quite good to help things like that, and he's reliable. So I think I can see why he's taking him, but personally I would have taken Braithwaite over him.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And let's talk. I think you touched on it, Reece. Let's talk surprise inclusions. The big one, the headline maker again, is Wharton. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was playing for Blackburn in the Championship last season. and he has absolutely risen to stardom. And I honestly don't think anyone really even predicted he'd have a chance. A lot of people rate him. Don't get me wrong. You know, I've had some comparisons to Busquets. Apparently, that's not come from me, but a few people from work. But he's highly rated. But surely no one saw this coming. Despite that,
I think this feels a bit like Walcott when he first got included. It's sort of like it seems too early, but it's just to get him around the squad. But I think that's okay when you're most likely going to get to a quarterfinals and things like that. We're the bookies' favourites. We should be trying to win this. Every player on that squad shouldn't be like let's give him some experience or something along them lines. Every one of them players should be ready to be called on to play, and he might be. Don't get me wrong, but it does feel a bit odd that he's been included. But then I guess it comes down to what I think the whole video is about is the squad. Who do we actually have in that sort of position to go with Wharton for places? Because let's be honest, we know the midfield two will be Rice, Bellingham, and then maybe a Foden, or if he's not going to go down that route, it's going to be a Wharton, a Mainu, a Gallagher, or a Trent. I don't think that's a lot of depth, considering Wharton and Mainu are very young. Trent is not a centre midfielder, which is what baffles me really about this. He's now been talked about as he's a central midfielder. And then you've got Gallagher, who, to be honest, I think Gallagher should be the pick out of the four if we're going with the Bellingham as the sort of number 10 role. But it doesn't, if you look towards, I don't know, the France squad, you look at more players and you think, oh, they've got that player, they've got that player, they've got that player. It seems, a bit more, they've got these players that will perform to that level, and we're relying a bit on kids. So that's where I see the problem with it. It just seems a bit odd to me to include him.
I mean, look, as someone who's an avid Football Manager player, I know how good Adam Wharton is. Was I surprised? Yes, because from the space of 99 days, he's made his Premier League debut and then got his first senior call-up for the England national team. That is insane. Like, normally, I believe you should at least have a full season in the top level to justify why you get your international pick. It's an interesting pick. I agree. I think you're getting a player who's going to be okay to be on the bench. Some of the other players might not, so that makes it easier to man manage. But I think Wharton's taken all of us by surprise. Like, for someone who's only about 19, 20, he shows a lot more maturity. I think I look at a lot of the England players that haven't been picked, and I look at them and go, if there's a player we need, who is going to step up? So a lot of them disappear. And his calmness on the ball, if you watch his play at Palace, his calmness on the ball, his decision making, I think he had 100% pass rate against Bosnia. I can see the thinking there. Someone who's just going to calm the game, someone who's going to, if you need to defend the lead or get balls forward. He's created loads of chances for Palace as well, let's not forget. So I get the decision there, and I think it's a good choice. I personally wouldn't have done it because I would have gone for someone who's already established. But reality is that hasn't worked. We haven't won anything. So I do like it. And it's a surprise inclusion. It either goes really well for Southgate or it looks really, really bad. It's definitely one of those. But for what I've seen from him in the Premier League, he's done a lot more than what I think a lot of other players have.
Yeah, and look, we're debating this. He may not get that many minutes anyway. So does it matter that much? As you said, you've got Rice in there who's nailed on. Gallagher, maybe you'd even put Mainu above him. Obviously many people would disagree with that, but I think the good thing is, and this is more general, talking about the squad. And I know we don't want to do this thing where we keep looking ahead and going, oh, it's such an exciting squad for the next tournament. But it is an exciting squad for the next tournament as well, regardless of what happens. Like, look at the midfield. We've just spoke about them. Like, what, the oldest is Gallagher and Rice? Like, you've got Mainu, Wharton, Rice, Bellingham, Gallagher. They're still all pretty young. So it is exciting. That's obviously just midfield. We can get into the strikers. But again, Foden, Palmer, Saka, they're not that old players either. So I do think we are building something exciting.
I just want to go back to Wharton. It's not specifically on him. I think one thing with the squad what I found alarming was the team with the most players in our squad was Crystal Palace. Henderson, Guy, Wharton, and Eze. Now, okay, Henderson won't play. Wharton, like we're saying, may not play much, and Eze is not a guaranteed starter. But isn't that a bit concerning, considering if you look at Germany's squad, who's going to be the most there? It's going to be Bayern Munich. It's going to be like to Dortmund. It's going to be Dortmund, Champions League finalists. Bayern Munich, who, apart from this season, have won their league every single season. You look at Spain, who are they going to have? Madrid, Barcelona, and we've got Crystal Palace. Now, it's not hate on Crystal Palace, but you're not one of these prestigious clubs. You're not winning any trophies. You're coming 13th, and that's the most in our squad. Is that winning mentality? I wouldn't say so.
I can see where you're coming from, Jamie, and
we're just trying to win the tournament.
I get it. Yeah, it is a strange one because, like I've always said, like in your international team, you need to have the players from the best squads. Now the Premier League has ruined that because obviously we don't really have many England internationals in the best teams, right? Is what it is. I think you should at least have 4 players from one of those top teams in it, whether it's Liverpool, City, Arsenal, Chelsea, whatever. Man, you to have that over the line. Look at that time when we had a lot of Spurs players in our team. None of those players had won anything, and it transitioned onto the pitch as well. It does. Whereas you look at Bayern, you're right. Germany have got Bayern Munich, not just Bayern Munich players, Bayern Munich leaders, the Kimmiches, and all of that. Spain under their dominance, Barcelona players. They had about 3 Real Madrid players in there. They're not these international caps. They're not just to hand out for a laugh. Now, yes, you're right. Palace haven't won a major trophy. Palace finished 13th. They've been amazing under Glasner, though. They are going to be a very, very good side next year. And I would argue that Mark Guy, Eze, I suppose Walter as well, if they played for a bigger club, they would have been picked in the side more. Because they have deserved it, particularly Guy and Eze, right? But I get that thinking as well. You do think, well, where are the serial winners, the leaders in that side?
I still think there's enough in there,
50-50. There's enough in there. But I look at it in comparison to Germany or France, and you look at those players that have won and delivered, and you do worry that it shouldn't matter, but it does in some way.
Is there enough winners in there? Because let's go off the ones who have won stuff. Looking down the list,
the Arsenal players have.
None of the goalies have. You've got Gomez, who's been a bit player for Liverpool, who have won stuff. Shaw, I think he has won stuff at United. Obviously, wasn't a part of the FA Cup win. Stones, Walker have. Trippier, I think he was a part of. Was he a part of Atletico's league win?
Yes, he was. Yeah, that's his only major honour. Yeah.
So he's won. Trent was a part of it, but as a right back, not a centre midfielder. Bellingham has just won the league and the Champions League, so he's definitely there. Mainu has just won the FA Cup. Rice hasn't won it. Oh, he won the Conference League. Then if you look at the strike force, Foden has, Palmer has under City. And Bowen has with the Conference League. It's not screaming winner mentality. That's a concern, and that's where we've got to say, is the squad good enough?
No, and just to say that, you're all right, because like I said, that's one of the reasons I would have taken Grealish, because you'd have had 4 City players in that starting 11 at least that are serial winners, and they've all contributed in their own way. If you look at the 2 German goalkeepers, Neuer and ter Stegen, they've won more than that whole England team combined, I'm sure. Neuer in his own has probably won more than that team combined. And it does speak it does speak volumes in a lot of ways, you know.
I think the Neuer ones. I don't know. I know what you're saying, but like Neuer's at the end of his career. He's been one of those guys. Like, is that going to help? It might help squad morale, whatever you want to call it. But I don't know. Like, I'm just trying to think now. Who else would we have included for that so-called winner mentality experience?
No,
Like,
no, no.
is there?
That's. I'm too fair. With me saying that doesn't mean I'm fully blaming Southgate on who he's picked and that. Because the one I've said before, I think Grealish should have been in it. But apart from that, you haven't. I don't think you haven't got many that are missing.
Yeah.
That have won major stuff, but that just means why are we the bookies' favourites? I'm still not sure on that part of it.
I suppose the counter argument to that is our golden generation was filled with glorious winners, and they won nothing at international level. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Scholes, Gerrard, Lampard, Ashley Cole. You know, even in the 90s, Tony Adams, David Seaman, all serial winners domestically, didn't win anything internationally. I know football has changed, but I do think sometimes you need those players who can really get the game by the scruff of the neck and know how to deliver, especially when it comes to decision making and chances. You know, that's where the difference lies. So
Yeah, agreed. And in terms of, I guess we could argue, and again, pause the video, let us know your thoughts on this in the comments. Is there enough winners in this side? You can argue that is a potential weakness. I think we've got to talk one more weakness, and for me, it's kind of glaringly obvious in this side, particularly when you look at the potential starting 11s. I think our defence. I think our defence is a glaring weakness by a mile. You know, you look at the front three, regardless of what formation you put out, you've got a good front three. I think you've got a good midfield three. The defence is where it all gets a bit shaky because you've got, you know, again, you've got Shaw who's in the squad, but, you know, basically injured. Then you're looking at maybe Trippier playing out of position. I know he's played there before, but, you know, we're tournament favourites, and we've got a right back potentially playing as a left back. Like, is this really what wins tournaments? I don't know. Then you look at the centre backs. You know, we don't know. Maybe you could argue Stones is now on, but even if, you know, you've got Gurhey, you've got Dunk, you've got Gomez. Like, again, you're not 100% confident. Whereas the Maguire injury is obviously unfortunate, and I think has definitely damaged our chances. But then even on the right back, you know, is it Walker maybe? Is it Trent? Is it Trippier? I do think either way you spin it, I don't think we can be 100% confident in our defence, and that's the weakness in my opinion.
To be perfectly honest, adding to that, which is a problem, is you don't know if Stones is going to be fit enough for the whole tournament, because sadly he hasn't been fit enough all season for City. If he is fit, he's the best player in our defence. Then you've got Walker, and I don't think Walker's had a great season this year compared to his normal standards. The problem he has is he switches off sometimes. And I think if you tell him don't go forward, he'll do a lot better. But it seems from exactly the Iceland goal, he will go forward because that's what Southgate wants. Southgate wants you to push up, and likes of Walker will be going forward, and Shaw or Trippier, whoever it is, on that side. So that is sort of another problem, and they're the winners. And I know I've just gone with that, but I think we should be fine with that side. It's the left-hand side, which would be, I think Guy will be playing there. I think that's probably the one I think will play. And then if Shaw's was close to not being in this tournament at all, so the fact that he's now there, and I think most people expect him to be the starting left back, I think might see this as he's probably not going to play any of the group games, and he's there to see if he's fit enough for the knockout stages, where he'll probably be like we'll need him then. So it can be a bit dodgy. I do agree. Yeah, it's a tough one because what else can you do?
Yeah, I mean, you look at that objectively, and let's be pessimistic for a second. You got Shaw with one leg, You got Trippier out of position, who, let's be fair, has been absolutely abysmal this season. He's not been great. Then you've got Gurhey, who has potential but isn't that proven. You've got Dunk, who, again, not a great season. Error City. Constantly, we saw it in the Europa League and get exposed and bullied by Lukaku. Stones hasn't played all season. You've got Walker, who you've just admitted hasn't had a great season. And you've got Trent, who can't defend. And you've got Gomez, who doesn't even start. So, I mean, you want to be pessimistic. That is the most pessimistic outlook. That is terrible. And yet we're 3-1 favourites to win the Euros. Absolutely wild. Yeah, I think that's our weakness, to put it bluntly. And just, again, to come back, let's look at some of the other squads. Let's just quickly go through it. I mean, we've got to look at the competition, right? I mean, who do we want to go through? You've got France, you've got Germany, you've got, Portugal. Look at their defence.
Well, yeah, France is obviously the next. I think they're second favourites for the tournament, who I would have as the favourites. Look at, most likely, Saliba will be on the bench for them. And Saliba's been probably the centre-back of the season and kept the most clean sheets in the league. You're not really worried about it. And it's kind of like, you probably got Koundé playing as right-back and Hernandez as left-back. And then as your backup, you've got Pavard, you've got Ferland Mendy. All very good players. So that's, I think France definitely have a better defence than us. If you look even at Netherlands, they've got Van Dijk, De Ligt, Ake, a few players going out of my mind. I think they've got Frimpong, who's had a great season.
Van der Ven as well.
Yeah, that's an incredible back five, by the way. If you want to do, if Netherlands plays a back five, that should be the five they play. That's better than ours. So this is where I thought us being favourites was was very generous. But
I mean, in all fairness, though, Holland under Koeman, what was it? Played 13, won 8, lost 5. So it's not that good.
Oh yeah, it doesn't mean they're.
You know what I mean? I get what you mean, but
I'm just talking about certain players.
Yeah, it's not that frightening in comparison to, we should beat that Netherlands side if we play them. Beat them probably quite comfortably, really. But it's.
Well, really, if you're looking at it, we should be beating probably everyone. And I think bar France. And you can have close games with, say, Germany, even with Spain. I think you can have close games with. But we're 3-1 favourites, and that's sort of where I'm a bit sceptical of. Because I think even if we move slightly to where our best players are, and that's in the attack, Saka's going to be on the right. I don't see any other sort of way Southgate sets up. And the player who got Player of the Premier League last season, best position was when he was playing right wing, but came inside. So it's sort of like, and then Palmer probably most of the season switched between Cam and right wing. I think he was rarely on the left. So that shows we've got such incredible players, all three of them very, very good, all in sort of a similar position. And it's sort of like the argument we've had before, where it was Walker, Trent, James, Trippier, all as right backs. Do we have too many players one-sided? And if we want to fit them all in, we've got to move someone slightly out of position. I think that's a headache for Southgate to have. It can be a bit of a nice one, but not an ideal situation either.
Yeah, no, completely valid. And look, we've said the negative. We've been pessimistic. Let's end on a high. Why can we win the Euros? Outside of the defence, which again, look, maybe I've been a bit harsh. Walker, leagues, Champions Leagues. Stones, leagues, Champions Leagues. Gurhey, rising star. Trippier, on his peak, looks absolutely solid. Let's be optimistic. Why can we win the Euros? Let's finish on that.
Because, one, we almost did. 2, we have the ability. The players do have it, and I think they will be confident. And 3, it's more even than I've ever seen it. It's difficult because the last tournament, I think there were a few teams in transition. Germany have got better, but they're still not. They're still a little bit shaky about them. Like, if we played them, we can beat them. They're tactically better. But if we go 1-0 up, we could beat them. You know, it's France obviously are an issue, but again, we've said it's the French stopping themselves winning it. They've imploded before. You know,
Yeah.
so we are more than Italy aren't that great. You know, and they're the holders. Spain, I don't rate that much. Holland, I don't rate that much. We have it in our hands to do it. So, you know, it's our best opportunity to do it, better than what it was last time. So it's up for grabs.
Well, sort of just to add, sort of, you know, I have been negative throughout this. I don't think we should be favourites. That's my main point. But in terms of we've got the quality of the squad, so we're definitely one of the few who should be trying to win this. You know, you've got Kane up front, who's, you know, gone and broke records in Germany. He's shown I'm not just doing it in the Premier League, I can do it in the Bundesliga. You've got, you know, you've got Palmer, who's come off an unreal season, first season at Chelsea, and blitzed it. You've got Foden, who's just won Player of the Season in the Premier League. Got Bellingham, Player of the Season in La Liga. Saka's, I think, actually has been very consistent for England and has turned up. Then you've got Rice, who's been brilliant all season for Arsenal. He's taken an extra level up from West Ham to Arsenal, and it's not looked like it's overwhelmed him. Stones and Walker, like you say, Champions League previous winners, won the Premier League several times in a row now. And I also think one person we've not really mentioned because he's probably going to start is Pickford. And I don't want to be a jinx, but for England, Pickford's been brilliant. And he was one that absolutely had his sort of like, he deserved a lot of praise for the last Euros on how we got to the final, and even in the penalty shootout, he did justified for himself.
Yeah.
So we can win it.
And to add to that, you know, we've not had the perfect defense before at tournaments, and we've been at previous tournaments pretty good defensively. So if they can repeat that, and as I said, just the final point for me on Kane is look at our competition with a striker. Mbappe, assuming he's wide, you know, you've got Giroud, who's at the end of his career. Kai Havertz is Kai Havertz, regardless of what Arsenal fans say. He's not that good. You've got the Netherlands, you know, Depay, who's a reject. No one really rates him. Who else?
Lukaku
Spain,
at Belgium.
Lukaku at Belgium. Napoli are trying to pay us 12 mil for him. And you've got Alvaro Morata. We're basically competing with Chelsea rejects, right? Havertz, Giroud, Morata.
Yeah, but Chelsea have a cursed striker spot. You've got to remember that. You've seen it since you signed Shevchenko years ago. You've just had a curse there with a Drogba and Costa filled in, who've been the highlights. The rest have normally been flops.
Yeah. And also, to further my point, who's our backup? Watkins, who's just had the season of his life. So there you go. That is all we've got time for this week. As I said, a lot to get through there. Make sure you are subscribed and hit that notification. Is football coming home? Let us know in the comments, yes or no. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.